Thank you, Brother Jonathan, and it's certainly good to see each of you this morning again and to be back with you. Terry and I are delighted that we could come up yesterday and be in your area through the night. If it rained, we didn't know it because we just didn't hear it. I guess we were sleeping if it maybe got a little bit of rain, but it rained on us pretty hard all the way over here, so maybe it may be following us. But at any rate, it's good to be here with you today. And I want to express my deep appreciation to you for the support that you're giving in this work. And I hope that in some way I can impress upon you the great work that's going on. And it's not because of my association with it. It was already going on before I was involved in it, but I've sort of inherited it and been with it now a number of years. But it's just reaching a lot of places in the world, and I hope that you can see this and that in the way that I present it. It's just a great work. And so you're doing a great work is what I'm trying to say by the support of this, and God bless you for that. And so we look forward to today and the lesson that we'll have in just a moment. As you know, COVID has restricted us from being able to travel overseas. I cannot go to Singapore. Singapore won't let me in, number one. If I had a work pass, which means you're working there on a regular basis, then I could go there, but you have to quarantine for 2 weeks when you get there, and they put you in a hotel and they charge you $2,000 to quarantine for those 2 weeks. Now, it's a really nice hotel. It would cost more than that to stay in the hotel, but they have a government assistant evidently with that. But what I'm telling you is I couldn't even go if I wanted to. And I've wanted to go. I wanted to go last year, and I could not. I wanted to go this year, still cannot. But hopefully, as doors are beginning to open up a little bit more in some places, that we'll be able to go back and put a hands-on approach. But the good thing about it is the work continues to go forward whether I'm there or not. And with modern technology that we have, we're able to do a lot that we could not have done in years past. But I thought what I would like to do, some of this will be very familiar to some of you perhaps, but it may not be to the many of you. As I think about Four Seas Bible College, that's what I want to center in on. Of course, I do other works in other locations, but I go into China, I go into Singapore where Four Seas Bible College is. We still support works in Russia. So it's a multifaceted work, but I wanted to center in on the Four Seas Bible College and what is being accomplished. So I wanted to look at the past and then the present and then also the future. The history of Four Seas Bible College. It started out in 1965 as the Malaysian Christian College. That was the name of it. 1965, to give you a kind of a barometer, I guess, to go by on that, the Memphis School of Preaching started a year later in 1966. So the Malaysian Christian College is 1 year older than the Memphis School of Preaching as far as its operation. Brother Ira Rice, of course, as you remember, had gone to Singapore back in the 1950s to establish the church in Singapore and as well as in Malaysia. And Singapore, for many years, was a part of Malaysia. And so it was Malaysian Christian College. This is the old Moulmein Road church building. It's a group of fellows, Christians who meet there. Unfortunately, they're not what they ought to be scripturally. And so there's no fellowship now with the Moulmein Road church and faithful brethren such as Limapin or Jurong or maybe some others. But at any rate, a brother from the U.S. who was over there came to one of our schools, became indoctrinated with some of the liberal ideas, brought it back to Singapore and created some problems for the Lord's work in that area. But be that as it may, this is the history. This is where it went. In fact, Brother Ira Rice helped raise the money for that church building that is there. That church building has been, of course, remodeled, and I guess it would be worth millions now today. But at any rate, that's what has happened. But the Four Seas Bible College as it started out, it moved over to the Pongol Road. And it was right on the tip of, right beside the South China Sea. Prime property. Very beautiful property. Singapore in itself, as you know, is a very beautiful place. And this location was ideal, and the government decided they wanted that property. And so they exercised the right of eminent domain, which means they said, we are going to have this property evaluated, and we will pay you whatever the market value of it is, but we're going to take that property. So they had to move off of Pongol Road, but that's the history, as you can see, as it comes on. And now we come up to the present to see where we're now located. We're over in a section of Singapore. Singapore's got various districts. It is an island, but it has various districts. And there's about, what is it, Jonathan, 6 to 8 million people now that live in Singapore on this island. And so that makes property very, very high, as you can imagine. But it's because it's prime real estate. It's gone from a third world country, by the way, to the number one country. A lot of millionaires and billionaires now also live in Singapore. But be that as it may, we have Four Seas Bible College, and this is the property that we now own. Four Seas Bible College actually just owns the top floor. If you were to look on the very bottom floor, that's where the Chinese brethren meet. And so they have their worship service in the Chinese language, Mandarin language. The second floor are the Singaporean brethren. And so they speak English, or as they, and we also refer to it as Singlish. So it's hard for them to speak English as we speak it. And I always kid them. I said, you know, when I come there, I'm teaching you the correct version of English, the Southern English, like y'all and things like that. That you know, they learn the British type English. And anyway, but they are there. They speak Singlish because they can't say. For an example, they make fun of themselves. They cannot say. It's hard for them to say "excuse me." So they have a T-shirt they're wearing that says "accuse me." So accuse me. I say, oh. And so they make fun of that as well. They put a "la" on the end of their language, parking lot, la, everything. But they speak fast, and there's a "lah" on it. That's Singlish for you. But the British used to own basically Singapore, and so that's the influence of that. But at the very top floor, that's where Four Seas Bible College is. That's where the dormitories are. That's where the classrooms are. And so that's where the teaching goes on a daily basis. So this is prime property. So we're very fortunate to have that property paid for. They have to rent the land that we're on. We share I believe we pay 20%. The Chinese pay 20%. The Singapore brethren then pay the 60% of the property that we have to rent from the Singaporean government. You have to keep your property up, make it look nice, or they come in and tell you to get your material off of my property. And you have to prove that you're productive, that you're benefiting the society, and in order to keep in operation, because property, again, is very important. And so fortunately, though, we've been able to do this. I believe this building was built in about 1969, I think it was. And at any rate, long history of handling all of that, and I'm glad I was not there when all of these things happened. Brother Rice and the other brethren took part of all the properties. But this gives you an idea of the subway in Singapore. You can go anywhere in Singapore by train, that is, by subway. You can actually leave the airport, which is out a good little ways from the town of Singapore, but you can travel. And so they have, it's almost like a city under a city. And you're amazed. You'll be on top and you're amazed. You're seeing Rolex stores. You're seeing really high-priced things. I've just gone window shopping. I didn't even go in. I just looked at some of the watches there that might cost $20,000 and $30,000 and things like that. And the Singapore brethren, by the way, are very generous. One of our teachers was over there teaching on a Wednesday night, and he said, you know, I lost my watch, so somebody else keep time for me. The next week, they had bought him a watch. Now, I don't know if that was out of their generosity or they wanted to make sure he stayed on time. But he said, I wish I had said I lost my Rolex last week. See, if I'd known you were going to buy one for me. But then when you go underground, that was on top of the ground. When you go down the stairs, you'll run into another mall. And it's just as affluent as the one above it. And this is all over Singapore, but also they have underground, they have the MRTs, they call it, Metro Rail Transit. And it's an intricate working, and you have to change trains from time to time, but you can buy a pass that lasts for a month or a year or whatever you want to do and reload it, and you can just travel anywhere. But this is what it looks like on any given day as you're traveling in Singapore. But I'm showing again the need of getting the gospel into these places as well. This is a little bit out of date, but I think there's going to be more population in Asia now. But you can see how small Asia is compared to the world, but yet it has nearly 5 billion people. Of the almost 8 billion people that are in the world, you've got most of them are living in Asia. And so we think about world evangelism and how do we reach these people. Well, Four Seas Bible College is helping reach a lot of them, as you will see in just a moment. So the commission is to take the gospel to every creature in the world, isn't it? And that's a monumental task, but it can be done. 53 nations, 2,197 languages. Can you imagine trying to speak these different languages? And yet, the great thing is, the common language in Asia, for the most part, is English. Everybody wants to learn English. Even when I go into China, I have gone to English schools where little children are being taught English. They set up private schools. We've got a good brother there, Brother George, and his wife Lily, who are both graduates of Four Seas Bible College. He's the preacher in Wuhu, China, and his wife operates a private school where she teaches English, and the parents drop them off, and she uses biblical material at times to get them to teach English, because English, they say, is a bridge to the world. Well, they speak Chinese or Mandarin. They speak other languages, but they also speak English. And so what a great opportunity it is as we go in then speaking English. And in fact, that also opens some doors for us. Since we're speaking English, they want us to come there so that the people can learn spoken English, not so much just English composition and things like that, but they want to know how to speak the English language. And so enjoy working with the children and doing some of that. Let's talk about the faculty and the staff of Four Seas Bible College. It's called Four Seas because of a saying that they have over there. I know there are more than 4 Seas, but within the 4 Seas, we are all brethren, it said. That was a saying that they had. And so the Four Seas Bible College took that saying, 4 Seas, and put it to the Bible College, trying to make brethren in the Lord, you see, around the world. The current faculty and the staff, and some of these are maybe no longer teaching, but they have taught there in the past. Brother Peter Chin, whom you know, he's been here before. He is a graduate of the Memphis School of Preaching, as well as a graduate of the Klang School of Preaching. When Brother Jim Dearman and his family moved to Klang, Malaysia, a number of years ago, and this thing is turning without me turning it, I believe. Well, I thought I had corrected that it would not do that. But anyway, that'll keep me going, I suppose. There's Brother Peter Chin. He has been here. He is the president and the director of Four Seas Bible College, doing a tremendous job. He's originally from Malaysia. You look at him and you can tell, of course, he's Chinese, but he's never been to China. It's kind of like one time I was on a plane, I believe it was, and I was looking at a man who was from the Philippines. I mean, he was Filipino, and so I got to talking with him, and since I'd been to the Philippines on several occasions, I thought maybe I knew some of the territory where he might have been. And I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Los Angeles." And so, so just because there's difference in nationality doesn't necessarily mean that they're Filipino. So he says, "I've never been to China," and in fact, he hasn't been able to visit his family in Malaysia for 2 years now, and it's just across the bridge from where he is. His mother passed away a couple of years ago. He was not able to attend her funeral, but he's there. And then his wife, Pui Fan Chin. And Brother Mosier refers to them as double chin, Peter and Pui Fan. But she's secretary, his good wife. They've been married many years now, and they also have 2 children, Andy and Willie, who are in Malaysia, and that's the ones they haven't been able to go see. And I think also Brother Peter Chin and Sister Pui Fan, they now have a grandbaby that they've never been able to see. So he's over there. He's really looking forward to the time that they can go and visit them. Brother Eddie E., he's been with Jurong for many, many years. And he serves as Dean of Students as well as an instructor at the Four Seas Bible College. But he's also the local preacher for the Jurong Church of Christ, which houses, of course, Four Seas Bible College. He's a good man. He got a lot of his Christian training in Korea. He went to a Christian college in Korea a number of years ago. Brother Trent Kennedy is from Texas. He's one of the instructors over there currently. He's married, and they have 4 children. So he took his whole family, and he's been there 2.5 years. He's got about 6 more months to go, and then he is coming home with his family. And so he gave a commitment for 3 years to go there and teach, and so he's fulfilling that commitment. Brother Jamie Long and his wife Jessica have just moved there. And so I'm not sure how long they are committed to staying, perhaps at least 3 years. So you have these 2 brethren who are there currently teaching every day. And so we're very grateful that these 2 brethren are there. And eventually, of course, we will try to find another instructor who can live in Singapore and continue on the work, since Brother Trent will be coming home. In addition to that, at times we've used a lot of online instructors in order to teach some of the courses. Brother Glenn Tattersall is from Australia. Good man. I think his work is overseen, supported by the South Haven congregation, South Haven, Mississippi. Brother John Diamante, he has been here before. I don't know if you remember him or not, but he was a student at the Memphis School of Preaching. He left a banking job in order to come to learn to preach, and has now gone back to the Philippines, and he is working near Manila, Philippines, and you have been with him, I think, at Commonwealth several times. Brother Jason Hilburn, he is an online instructor. He lives down in Florida. Brother Rusty Stark, I'm not that familiar with Brother Rusty, but Brother Peter Chin and them knew him. Brian Hatcher, you may know of his dad, who's done a lot of work in Indonesia. Barry Hatcher. Brother Stan Stockton from Texas. Brett Rutherford, well, you just can't trust those Rutherfords. Brother Caleb will back me up on that. This would be Brother Caleb's uncle, Brother Kevin's brother. But he is also in Australia, but does some online teaching from time to time for us, or has in the past. And then Brother Tim Hayes, who is from Alabama. And so these brethren have stepped up at times when there was a course that needed to be teaching, and by using Skype or now Zoom, we're able to teach live. Right now, everything is online. Even the brethren who are living there cannot go into the school and teach them. They've just locked it down again. So they hated it. The instructors hate it because they don't have that one-on-one. They would rather be there with them, but on October the 21st, they're going to reevaluate it, and maybe they can do it again. They've had some cases, but being it's an island, when COVID starts spreading, they really want to control it. So they shut it down hurriedly. Here's the idea of some of the courses that if you were a student or if you were going to be teaching, you have the Old Testament survey, Genesis. This is just first year here on the left column, Exodus through Deuteronomy, Hebrew History 1, Life of Christ, the Gospel according to John, Acts of the Apostles, Romans. You can see, I'm not going to go through all of these, obviously, but what I'm saying, they are getting a good, thorough education in the Word of God, and they have to do the homework. They can't work secular work and go to this school. They just like the Memphis School of Preaching, they have to put in the time, and they have to do all of this, by the way, in English, even though they come from other countries. You can move into the second year. You have Hebrew History 2, Jeremiah, and you have denominational doctrines, hermeneutics, some of the things relative to the Bible. In addition to that, the preacher and his work. You have New Testament Greek as well as teaching English in the first year. So they're getting a very good, thorough biblical education when going to the school. But they're very appreciative of this education because they will come from a lot of third world countries, and they will go back educated in the Word of God and be able to go out into the villages and out into the countryside teaching and preaching the Word of God. But they could not do it if they didn't have the support to do that. They leave the farms and other livelihood that they have in order to come there. Some of them will leave their families. There was a man who showed up from, a brother was just telling me the other day, I forgot what country it was. It's kind of like out in the jungles, but he wanted to come here. He didn't even, he didn't inquire about what to do to get there. He just left his wife and family, said, I'm going to school. I want to preach the gospel of it. And he showed up, Brother Peter Chin said, this is not the way you do it. You've got to apply. And so I think Brother Peter Chin sort of reprimanded him for doing that, but sent him back home and told him to make application. He went back home, made application, got accepted. He's now in school. And they said, but he's doing a fantastic job, but he wants to learn the Word of God. But he's willing to leave his wife for 2 years and be there in order to teach and to preach the Word of God. Well, Four Seas Bible College in the future, as we think about, as we look, we've looked at the past, how that in the background of this, the concept was, if we could ever find a place in Asia where people spoke English, it would be wonderful to set up a school where we could train Christians, gospel preachers, Bible class teachers, in English. Then they could go back into their homelands, to those 2,000 different languages that are there, and teach in their homeland. That was the idea. And the way that actually came about was Brother Ira Rice, who was preaching the gospel in California at that time, had told a man who was Chinese that if I could find a place where the common language was English, he said, I would move there. He said, you're talking about my home country. He said, where are you from? He said, I'm from Singapore. Brother Rice had never heard of Singapore. But he said, the common language is English. And yet we have Malaysians, we have British, therefore they speak English. We have Indian, Chinese, of course Singaporeans, Filipinos. All of these people live in Singapore. And they speak English. Yes, they speak English because they come and they work in Singapore and then they go back to their home. And so that was the concept then of establishing the church. Brother Rice, I can remember him telling the story. He said, my mother had bought me from a salesman. You remember how salesmen used to come by and sell these little thin encyclopedias? Maybe 4 or 5 volumes of them. He said, my mother had bought me a set of those. He said, and so I had to look up the word Singapore in it, in that little encyclopedia. He said, I found about this much material on Singapore in that little encyclopedia. But he said, I decided I'm going to Singapore. And so long story short, if you'll read the story, Brother Rice had a way of writing. he got the flu on one occasion as he was going to another mission point, and he said, I had to get off. He said, because the further I flew, the fluer I got. And so he made a lot of sacrifices, but that's the past. But somebody had the foresight to do that. That was my point, and we respect him, and they still hold him in high esteem, even though Brother Rice has passed on, because they thank God sometimes in their prayers that Brother Rice came and established the Lord's church in Singapore. They say the same thing in Malaysia as well, and of course he went into other countries. So that's the past. We've looked at the present, what we're doing now, but what can we do in the near future, as well as the Lord permits us to live on in time, what can happen for us? Well, this is what we're looking at. Here we have graduates, at least in these different countries. Singapore is just a small little island, but look at the influence that is reaching out. Pakistan, one of the earlier graduates, one of the first graduates who's still alive in Pakistan is Brother Oscar Ali. And he is preaching the gospel in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan is not an easy place to preach the gospel. In fact, they have people with machine guns surrounding the building to protect them. But most religious organizations will do that. They have tried to intimidate Brother Oscar Ali. Notice his name, Ali. Muhammad Ali, you see. In other words, a shortened form of an Islamic God, Allah. They accused him of blasphemy. He said, how am I guilty of blasphemy? Because you converted from Islam to Christianity. And that's blaspheming Allah. He said, I have never been in Islamic religion, never been Mohammedan. Yes, your name says that. He said, that's the name my father gave me. That's not my name because of my religion. Because if they could have convicted him of blaspheming Allah, they would have executed him. They would have killed him. But Brother Oscar, still going there, still preaching the gospel. And he said, please come and preach. He said, don't worry about the machine guns. You okay? Well, anyway, but we also have brethren who are graduates in the country of Nepal, which borders on to India. We have brethren in India. Of course, there's a lot of work going on in India, Sri Lanka, down below India, Laos. I've been invited to come to Laos. I can't go there yet. Lord willing, I'm going to go there in January in a different way. Thailand. We have brethren who are graduates who are preaching in Thailand. I've been privileged to go to Thailand, preach the gospel. Cambodia, Vietnam. We have currently students from Vietnam. We have graduates from Vietnam who are back over there. That's a communist country again. A lot of people coming from the Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and in China. In fact, we have a school that is set up online. That is Brother Philip and Brother Bob. That's their English names. I couldn't tell you their Chinese names. But they're operating a school trying to teach the Word of God online to college professors who are not Christians. But they're reaching out to them, and they sent me a photo recently of someone who was baptized as a result of this. And so they're working with educated people. And of course, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Perhaps you know of the school that's in Indonesia that Brother Barry Hatcher, the Indonesian Bible school there. All of their faculty came to Four Seas Bible College, see. So you helped to train teachers who are now teachers in another school in Indonesia. And so that's the far-reaching effect, 2 Timothy 2:2, and the things which thou hast heard from me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others also. And so on it goes. Four Seas Bible College influence then, just again, give another idea of it, but you can see coming up above Indonesia, you see the arrow pointing perhaps to Singapore. But what a great opportunity we have as we reach out to that. But like the rest of the world, COVID hit us, which stops my being able and Brother Jonathan's being able currently to travel into some of these places to check on the work in Shanghai or in Wuhu, China, or on over into Hefei, China. I cannot get into that right now. I'm not sure my wife would let me in the front door if I was to go to China anyway right now, because she don't know what I might have when I got back, wherever this COVID stuff started. But at any rate, I can't get into China, can't get into Singapore, just can't do that. However, Four Seas Bible College is still operating. We have student body that is there right now. We're having some difficulty, and the numbers may be small as they're coming in, and they may have to operate online for just a little while until we can get them there. But we're going to keep on keeping on. And so, God has blessed us with some technology that we can use. Still not as good as face-to-face teaching, but it is a way of still communicating the Word of God. Using technology to preach the gospel. That's one of the things that I'm doing. In fact, I just wanted to use this as an illustration. Just last week or two ago, I was teaching using Zoom. I was able to teach a Bible class on the subject of the family to those who are in the country of Panama. I've been privileged to preach the gospel in Panama. There's a school there in Panama as well, and they asked me would I teach the instructors and their families on the topic of the family. So this is live teaching that we're able to do. Also, Lord willing, I have been asked by a brother who, now keep in mind that Laos is a communistic country. And basically Christianity is tolerated as long as you don't evangelize very much. You're not allowed to evangelize outside your province. So I was surprised to learn a few years ago that there is a brother who's operating a school of preaching in Laos. And he invited me to come and teach a week or two in his school in Laos, who then they will go back, you see, to their provinces. The good thing is they can come out of their province to come to that school, but the brother who is in his province in Laos cannot travel around the country of Laos and teach and preach. So I'm scheduled in January of 2020 to teach via Zoom, that is using the programs, the preacher students. And so here's what he wrote me. He said, I want you to teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays the month of January. Well, I teach full-time at the Memphis School of Preaching. But it just so happens I looked at the time that he wants me to teach. It said 8:30 in the morning until 10. I'm not teaching a class in January from 8:30 to 10, so I agreed to do that. And so I'm probably going to teach something like the book of Ephesians, but he wants me to send my material so he can go ahead and translate it and have that ready. But I had to go back and check. You see, they are 12 to 13 hours ahead of us, which means 8:30 in the morning. Over there is 8:30 at night. So I was beginning to wonder, is he talking about 8:30 in the morning for my teaching, or am I teaching 8:30 at night, going to 10 at night? But he's graciously said, oh no, it's your time, 8:30 in the morning. So they're the ones that have to stay up a little bit later and be at school. I will already be there. But isn't it great that we have this avenue that I can go there and teach? I can set it in my desk at Memphis or my desk at home and teach the Word of God. Again, it's not as good as being there. Not as good as being there, but if I can't be there that way, at least I can be there this way. So we're doing what we can with the situation. Plans are to resume travel as soon as possible. We're looking forward to going back into Singapore as soon as possible to check on the work, encourage the work that's going on there. I'm also still hoping to be able to get back into China. I want to go back into Shanghai, where there's something like, 28 million people who live in the city of city of Shanghai. And what a great opportunity that we have there. I want to, and then there's I'm going into Vietnam. Brother Tim will go into Vietnam again as soon as it's open. We have a new student. He's been there. I don't think he can go home. He's already graduated, but he's in the country of Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste, if you will study the history of Timor-Leste, it was once owned by the Indonesians, and then the Australians took it over, and then it went back maybe to Indonesia, but then they decided they want to be their own country. And if you will go back and study, I watched a YouTube video on the takeover, again, when they declared their, not takeover, but they declared their independence from, maybe it was Indonesia, the atrocities that they had to go through. Many of them were killed because they did not want to give this up, but they now have their independence. But they're Polynesian type people. And so there's been a Catholic influence there. They would call it Christianity. So they allow, quote, Christianity, you see, in these countries. One brother that we know of was converted by a Singaporean Christian businessman who traveled to Timor-Leste. This brother worked in the hotel where the brother was staying. The brother taught him, converted him, and so now then he's the only Christian in that whole country. So he's come to Four Seas Bible College to be trained, and he wants to go back to Timor-Leste, and he wants help. And so we're hoping that when it opens back up and he goes back home, that soon after that we can go and visit him to encourage him, to help him to establish the Lord's church in this country of Timor-Leste. So anyway, that's the future. But you see, Four Seas Bible College is helping that. In a roundabout way, then, you're helping that. You're helping to evangelize these places where we cannot personally go, we cannot personally speak the languages, but we can train the people there who speak our language, and then they go back in to doing that. In the meanwhile, the work continues to go forward. So God has blessed us with technology. We send monthly to Four Seas Bible College for its operation. That goes over each month. Brother Peter Chin, who the Coldwater congregation takes the oversight, and we send money over to Brother Peter Chin because he works that full time. Of course, the work in Russia still goes on. That's a difficult work. In the past, I made 21 trips into Russia, up above the Arctic Circle, and the Lord's church is still established there, and it's going forward. But it's just very, very difficult in Russia. And so these works then must have the support to continue their operations. And so that's basically what I try to do, is help those workers who are there, and people like you come and give the report on that. I think my time is up, but your support is helping to evangelize the world, and here's why we do it. It's because Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel to everyone.